Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the CeMAP Study Podcast, where every single week, almost, we get together and we help people get CeMAP qualified. I'm Charlotte.
I'm Maria.
And in this week's episode, we are doing some CeMAP 1 stuff.
Yay!
And it's CeMAP 1 topic 16, which is the last topic of the first half of your CeMAP 1 exam. Let that sink in. So,
okay.
I'll do all the other introductory stuff in a second, but when you sit your CeMAP 1 exam, it's 100 multiple choice questions.
Yes.
Split into two. So you've got 50 multiple choice questions and another 50 multiple choice questions to do. You have to pass both to pass your CeMAP 1.
Yes.
This is the last topic of the first half of your exam.
Oh, okay. So at this point, you're halfway through.
You're halfway. You're at the halfway through point of your studies once you've listened to this episode. So congratulations.
Let's do it.
And there's so many questions that come up in people's exams under this particular topic.
What is this topic?
Key legal concepts is the chapter of the textbook.
Okay.
So it's legal stuff. It was doing well.
In a shocking turn of events. Okay, head in the game.
We're going to talk about things like power of attorney.
Yeah.
Wills and trusts.
Son.
Agents, as in the power of agency, or estate agents, or like
not secret agents.
Agent-principal relationships.
But okay.
Yeah, not secret agents. Sadly, that's not covered under
Fine.
CeMAP. All of that stuff. Honestly, everybody feeds back and they're like, Charlotte, it was one topic and there were so many questions. So I ain't going to cover it all, and that's because this is not a comprehensive study guide. You cannot listen to this podcast and expect to pass your exam, but if you do, let us know. And before I blather on any further, Maria, would you mind?
Cue intro music.
Okay, welcome back. So, legal bits. I remember recording this for the first time, like 18 months ago, when we first did the podcast. Yeah, we were. And it's going to feel very different with this one. And that's mainly because I have such a better understanding of this topic now.
Which is crazy, isn't it?
I mean, not really. I do this every single day.
No, but as in that we had the balls the first time round to be like, we know enough. Yeah. I knew nothing, and I still don't know a huge amount. But
I mean, you passed half your CeMAP 1 exam. That counts for something.
Whoa, there.
Is it true? You did pass half. Was it this half?
I don't actually know.
Was it Unit 1 or was it Unit 2? Oh, well, Maria's half CeMAP 1 passed her exam. It might not even be this half.
Who knows?
But I've been doing this for 2 years now, so I feel like I can bring a lot to the table.
Yes, you can.
And this is the first topic that talks about things like the legal stuff that has to happen with not necessarily house buying, but the financial advice side of things or financial services.
Yeah.
So from a mortgage perspective, you have to be 18 to have a mortgage in England, and you have to be sound of mind. Maria, what does that mean?
Not mental.
Not mental. So
every guy tells you their exes.
Yeah, exactly like that. So you have to have mental capacity.
Yes. So you must legally be defined as having capacity, which is everyone, unless you've been defined as not having capacity legally.
We've messed with the camera.
You messed with the camera because your jam hands are up here doing all kinds of things.
Okay, fine, I'll fix it. So, legal stuff. 1, you have to have mental capacity. 2, you have to be at least 18 to get a mortgage. Both potential exam questions. When do people not have mental capacity?
When they've been sanctioned under the Mental Health Act.
Correct.
When they have been declared as unfit by a doctor, typically.
Yeah. So, if somebody has being declared as not having mental capacity, that means they can't enter into a legal contract, but there will be somebody in place that could enter into a contract on their
behalf should they need it.
And it's funny because really with mortgages and financial services and stuff, there's not many cases where you would, but you can. So the best example of somebody not having mental capacity is when we talk about grandparents.
Yeah.
When they start to go off their box a little bit, and you're very familiar with this.
Yes.
All those things that mean that they no longer have decision-making capacity to be able to do important stuff.
Exactly.
At that point, somebody's mental capacity is somebody's mental, rights in a professional way are removed, and somebody else will be appointed to be a decision maker on their behalf.
Exactly.
And that's called power of attorney.
Yeah.
And this is where the bulk of the questions in this topic are going to come from.
Yeah.
So I think we talk next. I've skipped past on my notes, past so much stuff, so we'll have to loop back around. But we'll talk about power of attorney first. And there's 3 types of power of attorney that we need to know about for the purposes of CeMAP. Number 1 is called enduring power of attorney.
Yep.
That actually doesn't exist anymore, but they still like to ask you questions on it in CeMAP, of course.
Of course they do.
Then there's ordinary power of attorney.
Yep.
And then there's lasting power of attorney.
Yep.
So those are the 3 flavours of power of attorney. All that I want people to remember with enduring power of attorney is that it doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
So it's not a thing. It's been binned off.
Yep.
I think because of that reason, you are less likely to get asked questions on it, but it can still happen.
So be aware of it.
Yeah. It's been replaced now with what we know as ordinary power of attorney.
Okay.
But the important thing to remember about this is, and if this is the only thing you take away from this podcast episode, then that's fine. Enduring power of attorney ends when somebody loses mental capacity. Just think about that for a second.
Ends when someone loses mental capacity.
What's the flaw in that plan?
That's the point at which you need somebody to have power of attorney.
Exactly. So it stops at the point where you think most people would actually need it to kick in.
Yeah.
So it's for particular reasons that people put this in place.
Yes.
The most common reason, and I'm going to use the example of people who are in the military.
Yep.
So if they are in the military, they are posted away however many months of the year.
Yep.
If they're posted in a country and they're busy, they're probably not going to have time to answer the phone to talk about their remortgage.
Yeah.
So what they do is they will give somebody else legal power of attorney, or ordinary power of attorney is this particular one, for them to manage their stuff.
Yeah, so that they don't have to answer the phone in a fob in Afghanistan to deal with the mortgage advisor.
Exactly. The other example I like to give is if you got a job tomorrow as a Disney princess at Disneyland, Florida.
But I'd take Ursula.
Interesting choice.
Was it, though?
No, maybe not. Okay. So you have a job. It's a 9-month gig at Disneyland, Florida as Ursula. Mm-hmm. You are going to be living your best Disney villain life.
Love that for
And you also don't want to have to deal with your finances or the fact that you've gone overdrawn because you brought 17 Disney dresses this week.
Seems fair.
So what you're going to do is you're going to appoint me ordinary. You're going to give me ordinary power of attorney.
It would literally be your wet dream to get your hands on my finances.
I would, like, spreadsheet for days. And that means that while you're living your best Disney villain life, I can manage all of your financial shit.
I might just let you do that anyway.
You can put it in place.
So much
I'm not saying do it, but I've got a phone number and we can make it happen.
So much
and then
more fun than what I'm currently doing.
Have a second spreadsheet and it'll just be a great time.
We are about to combine finances, so is this where I get dragged into a spreadsheet?
Oh, big news, guys.
Big news.
There's going to be a change in scenery soon because we're moving house. And when I say we, that's because after a year of being next door neighbours, we've decided to move in together.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for what could be... Looks like you got a halo on the video, by the way.
It does.
What could be the best or worst decision we've ever made. We're not sure. You'll find out.
Stay tuned. See what happens.
That's ordinary power of attorney. So you would put it in place. You would let somebody manage your stuff.
Yep.
But if something terrible were to happen to you whilst you were a Disney villain, it would end. I would no longer have control of your shit.
Okay.
Which feels counterintuitive.
It does, but also the person that you have managing your daily finances, you'd like to think that you trust them enough.
You would.
If you go crazy. But that's not necessarily the case.
So what you would do is you would have ordinary power of attorney in place if you're a Disney princess. You would probably also then put lasting power of attorney in place. So LPA, or lasting power of attorney, is the third and final flavour of power of attorney.
Yeah.
So just to recap, enduring doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
Ordinary power of attorney does exist, but it ends if you lose mental capacity. Mm-hmm. Lasting power of attorney would kick in if you were to lose mental capacity. Yeah. So if you'd put both in place, I could manage your stuff while you're a Disney princess.
Yeah.
I could then manage your stuff if you became a vegetable after a horrific Disneyland, Florida roller coaster accident. I could continue to manage your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So realistically, people having this discussion should put both in place. And what I would say to everybody that listens to this podcast is, in the free version of my e-learning platform for CeMAP 1, which I will link in the show notes, I've had the lovely Nicole from The Will Guys, and she did my CeMAP course. She's incredible. She has her own company that helps people with their wills and power of attorney and estate planning.
Amazing.
And she has put mini training videos in the e-learning platform.
Oh, Nicole, we love you.
That explain all of this in a much better way. In fact, so most people are now not going to finish this episode because they're going to be like, well, why are we wasting
time with you muggles?
Yeah.
I respect that because Nicole is the expert.
Everyone can go in and watch those, and I would recommend everybody does. One thing I will say, though, is Nicole knows way more than you need for your CeMAP exam, so I'm going to try and rein it in to specifically what you need just for the CeMAP exam.
But this isn't a comprehensive study.
Non-comprehensive study guide, whereas Nicole will go into a lot more detail.
Okay, cool. So if you just want to understand it for shits and giggles, Nicole's your lady.
Yeah. And then the last point on lasting power of attorney is it's split into 2 categories.
Yep.
Health and welfare and property and finances.
Yep.
So what that means is when you are appointing somebody responsible for stuff, you will have, or you can have, one person that's responsible for one that's responsible for another.
Yeah.
Fun fact, which I actually have not disclosed to you until right now, I sorted my power of attorney out last week with Nicole.
Ooh.
And you are responsible for my health and welfare decisions.
Amazing.
If anything happens, you have the right to turn me off.
Understood.
But I've given my sister management of my finances because I know that they're not your bag and they stress you out.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I've split it between 2 separate people.
Also, it spreads the burden.
Yeah.
Like in that scenario, typically whoever are your powers of attorney are dealing with a fucking shit show.
Yeah.
Like it is not fun.
If you've lost mental capacity, yeah.
It's no fun. So having 2 people to share it, to discuss it, does make a difference because it is really isolating to make those decisions by yourself.
Yeah.
So if you have people, like obviously your sister doesn't have health and welfare, I don't have finance.
Because she'd keep me alive forever. I love my sister, but she would keep me on a ventilator for decades.
Yeah, whereas I'd unplug you week 2 once she started beeping annoyingly.
Exactly.
Quit!
That's what you need.
Yeah, you need the balance. But having someone that you can speak to is in a similar response role as you.
Yeah. The problem with that comes is if you've got 2 people that are appointed for each and they can't make a decision. And they end up in loggerheads about stuff.
So you can't. So if you have, so you can appoint 2 people for. I don't know if it's limited to 2 or you can have more, but you can appoint say 2 people for both. You can't split the balance of power. Yeah, they are equal because a family member tried to be like, well, I want to retain power,
60% ownership,
literally 60% decision making, so that you literally cannot make a decision without me. And the solicitor was like, that's not a thing. Like you either both have it or nobody has it.
Yeah.
Like one person has it all or we split it equally. Like there's not an availability in law to be like, well, I'd like for there to be 4 people involved, but I really want like Bo to have the end final decision making capacity. So it is going to be equal. Whoever you give it to, they're going to share it. So bear that in mind. Cool. Whoever you're appointing.
And then the next bit is, what if there's no power of attorney in place? So like, what if something happens to somebody, they lose mental capacity and you haven't got your figurative shit in one sock? That is the most common example of what happens. Actually, most people don't have power of attorney in place because you never think anything bad will happen.
Unless you've got
serious trauma from recent experiences on exactly that. So if something happens to somebody and there's no power of attorney in place, you can get something called deputization.
Yep.
Or you can be what's classed as being appointed a deputy.
Which is not as much fun as Texas Walker Ranger makes it seem.
You do not get a little sheriff's badge.
Which is bullshit!
Or a tiny cowboy hat, because I checked. So when somebody loses mental capacity and there's nothing in place, you have to apply through the courts for deputization, which is both lengthy and expensive.
And infuriating.
And what they do is they'll send somebody out to look at whoever it is that's lost mental capacity, and they'll go,
they are
in fact, not a brain, cool. And then they will appoint deputies, whoever they think is the most sensible choice out of the group of people that are thrown in front of them.
Yeah.
And that's called deputization. And all of that stuff, there's like 10 potential exam questions under all of those power of attorneys stuff.
Yeah.
And deputization as well. Yeah. So, and then line under that, if you're making notes, which most people aren't, because they definitely listen to this on the move, put my hand in the video, and now we've really ballsed it again. There we go. The last thing I wanted to talk about for this topic is to do with agent and principal relationships.
Kinky.
Because this will come up in CeMAP 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So I'm not just talking about an estate agent. I am going to use an estate agent as an example in a second. But what we need to understand is that we are talking about any professional relationship where one person is being represented by another.
Okay.
Give me some examples.
Lawyers.
So with a lawyer,
it's a solicitor
or a solicitor, who would be the principal and who would be the agent?
The agent would be the solicitor,
and the principal would be
the customer.
The customer. Cool.
So, like, you would be my agent if you were a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I would be your principal.
Yeah. So whoever is paying for the service is generally the principal. That's one good way of thinking about it.
2 Ps.
Yeah. The example I'm going to use is somebody selling a house and their estate agent. Because the person selling the house is the principal, or the vendor, which is another word for seller.
Ooh.
That'll come up in CeMAP 2 and 3. And I like the word vendor because you're just going to think about vending machines. They sell stuff. Shiny chocolate bars as you walk past.
Yeah.
Glowing lights.
Yeah.
Vendor, seller, principal.
Got it.
All the same thing.
Yeah.
And then an estate agent is an agent of the seller because they will act on their behalf to sell that property.
Yes.
So they have to do within means whatever the seller says. And this is where the heavy exam questions come in because we need to talk about 2 different things. One is called ratification.
Yeah. And
one is called apparent authority. And they are really similar things with slight differences.
Okay.
They will both come up in your CeMAP 1, 2 and 3 exams. So there's potential 2, 4, 6 questions over all your exams on just this 5-minute chunk of podcast that we're going to do.
Okay. Listening ears on.
Listening is on, people. So ratification is where a agent acts outside of their authority. But the principal agrees with them after the fact.
Okay.
Can you think of an example? If not, I have one, and I was going to be like, is this a fair question to ask Maria? That's why there was a pause for a second. So if the answer's no, that's fine.
No.
Good, because I have the one that then Maria might give you in your exam. So here's the scenario.
Yes.
You have a rental property.
Yes.
You are going to work at Disneyland and you want me to look after your rental property.
I seem to be working at Disneyland quite a lot.
You do, I know. You really made it big. So you are going to say to me, Charlotte, I'm going to give you ordinary power of attorney.
Yes.
Look after these tenants.
Yes.
I really like these tenants. Do not evict these tenants because I really like them. But also just make sure the rent's paid and look after the property. Okay, love you, bye.
So
that's it. Those are the instructions. However, 6 months down the line, these tenants become unfavourable. They become a bit of a menace.
Don't like them.
They've started having late night rages. The police have been called on numerous occasions.
No way.
There's been a window put through.
Real wrong-uns.
Damage to the property. Fist through door.
Awful.
Whole 9. I make the decision to evict these tenants.
That seems reasonable.
Also, they're not paying the rent.
Absolutely. Unforgivable.
The problem with me evicting these tenants is in your instructions.
Directly against what I've told you to do.
Yeah, exactly. In your instructions, I have directly gone against what you told me to do.
I have explicitly told you not to evict them.
However, when you come back and I explain the situation,
I'm probably going to be fine with it.
Yeah, I would like to think you'll go, sound, that made sense. I'm glad that you did that. New tenants are in, they're paying the rent, place is nice and clean.
The house is clean, there's no holes in my doors.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that seems reasonable.
So ratification is the process of where your agent does something and the principal agrees with them after the fact.
That makes total sense.
Apparent authority is very similar. So we are going to use the same scenario.
Yes.
You are going to Disneyland.
Yes.
And you say to me, Charlotte, can you just look after the property, make sure the rent's coming in?
Yeah.
That's it. Those are your instructions.
Cool. Simple.
Same scenario happens. Tenants turn into a bit of a shitbag.
Yeah.
I make the choice to evict them, put new tenants in. I've not specifically gone against anything that you've asked.
No.
But what I have done is I've kind of gone above what you suggested I could do, because you kind of didn't say, evict the tenants if necessary.
Yeah.
But I've worked on the assumption that you kind of gave me a wider...
that you have the lateral movement to do that.
Lateral movement? Is that the right phrase, or were you talking about the camera movement?
Oh no, I was talking about
Clearly don't know the legal phrase, legal terminology.
I don't think that's legal terminology.
Law degree comes in handy. So, can you see the difference?
Yes.
One is where I've gone against your request, but you've agreed.
One is you have not gone against an explicit instruction, but you could technically have been accused of acting outside of your capacity.
Exactly. I believe the phrase they use in your exam is to do with where wider authority is given, something along those lines.
Okay.
But that, and maybe that exact scenario, could come up in your CeMAP 1 exam.
Okay, so that seems
And I guess you can switch your listening ears off now. I don't know how long we've been in on this.
I don't know. Where is the?
There's no time.
20
minutes. That's a good length.
Anyone watching this on YouTube, you're welcome for that photo.
Let me check my notes. Did we cover everything?
Ooh.
Legal concepts, agents, powers of attorney. No, we did not, because you know what we've not done? Wills and trusts.
Never.
So a will is a written document that states what you want to happen with your shit when you die.
Yep.
There's certain things that we need to know about wills, and I've just scrolled past my notes, so bear with.
2 seconds,
When I say my notes, I mean the textbook. I'm giving you all the good stuff.
Hang on a second, no. There are 3 post-it notes that I can see with scribbles on.
Yeah, but none of those are the ones that I needed. This is what I needed here.
Okay.
So, wills.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be of sound mind over the age of 18 to make a will.
Yep.
You also have to have 2 witnesses who are over the age of 18, sound of mind, and not benefiting from the will.
That is the kicker, guys. You cannot benefit in any way from a will if you are going to witness it.
Mm-hmm. Maria, what does it say in the executor right there? Because I've not got my specs on.
Where is... I can't even see... Oh. Executor. Person named by the testator as being responsible for carrying out the wishes expressed in a valid will.
Fabulous. So, a few points there. Testator is the name of... Stop it. Somebody making a will. The testator is the person who makes their will.
Yeah.
So if you have a will, Maria, you are the testator. The executor is the person who is responsible for carrying out your wishes.
Yes.
The beneficiaries are the people who benefit from the will,
yes,
who cannot be the witnesses, who were the people that signed and witnessed the will.
Yes.
That's it. That's the whole lot.
Whole kit and caboodle.
There's no such thing as a trustee in a will.
Nope.
I can't think of any other names. Not relevant. Those are all the ones that you need for wills. Wills become invalid when you get married. So a marriage invalidates a will. But I'm not going to go into the details of that on the basis that I'm not entirely sure how that works. I just know that it's a thing.
Because under law, under the Marriage Act, whichever Marriage Act, whatever year it was, your... sorry. Why is it always my giants fucking spades that make it work? Your spouse inherits automatically.
Cool.
To
and
protect
actually,
them.
That's a... Cool. So, beyond what we need for CeMAP, so I'm not going to linger on that one.
Cool.
But a marriage makes a will invalid. If you die without a will, you are known as dying what's called intestate or in intestacy. 4 out of 5 people in this country die intestate. They don't have a will.
Terrifying.
Is it though? People get weird about talking about death.
I forget how overexposed we are to it.
Yes. So most people die without a will, which is called dying intestate, or in intestacy. The problem with that is you have no control over who inherits your stuff. There's automatic rules with intestacy that you can not do anything about.
Yeah.
The other problem is it tends to take longer to settle the estate once they've died.
Yes.
So 2 different examples. My mum died without a will.
Yeah.
It was relatively straightforward in a sense of she wasn't married and there were 2 children and we equally inherited everything.
Yeah.
But there were even little complicated things like, well, she was previously married but divorced, and then they had to find out if he was still alive, which he wasn't. But if he had been, they'd have to have hunted him down to see if he was entitled to anything. Were there any adopted children that we didn't know about? All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It takes like 2 years to settle an estate.
Yeah.
With no will in place. And if you die with no will in place, it's called a grant of letters of administration that you apply to from the courts, or a grant of letters. If you die with a will, everyone knows who's getting what. It's a clear statement of wishes, happy days. It's called a grant of probate that you apply to with the courts. Generally quicker and easier to settle an estate with a will than without.
Absolutely, although I will let you know that the probate office currently has a backlog of 12 months on account of COVID.
Yeah, and the grant of letters of administration, it's 18 months. So you're 6 months ahead with the grant of probate, but Not by a huge amount. And then the last thing that we'll talk about to wrap up this topic is trusts. And we've done trust before a little bit, I think. I've got no idea what topic we did it in, but I know we have touched on it.
It's all a blur.
The idea with trusts is you can put things into trust, which means your kids don't have to pay inheritance tax on it. Simplest way I can think of doing it.
Yeah.
And it can be anything. It can be money, it can be a house, it can be an investment.
Yeah.
It could be a life insurance policy.
Yeah.
All of these things you can literally pick up and put it into like a little cauldron that we are going to call a trust.
Yeah.
When you do that, you pay a small fee for it, and that thing sits outside of your estate for inheritance tax purposes.
Yeah.
Which means, in theory, kids should never pay inheritance tax.
Yes.
But people don't know about this. So there's a couple of different people involved in trusts as well that we need to know about. Every trust has something called a trust deed. So imagine your little cauldron pot with your thing in it.
Yeah.
It will have a document stapled to the front of it. It won't be stapled, but you get the idea. Called a trust deed. That is the legal document that says exactly what needs to be done with this thing you die. So it could be that it's a house, you put it into trust, you say, I want it to continue to be rented and for the rental income to be paid to my beneficiary or the beneficiary of the trust. It will also have trustees, and trustees are the people who are legally responsible for making sure that whatever is in the trust deed takes place.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I had a house and I put that into trust, I could appoint myself as a trustee and you.
Yeah.
And then say, I just want the money to come in and to be put into an account for my daughter.
Yeah.
It would be our job to make sure that happened as trustees. If I died, it would just transfer over to you.
Yeah.
A lot of people get solicitors involved to manage that process as well.
Which is fair.
But it's just important to remember that it helps mitigate people's inheritance tax bills. So if any of you guys go on to be financial advisors, trust's going to be a big thing that you're going to be dealing with. Yeah, exactly. And that's it. That's all we've got time for this week's episode. I think that was pretty comprehensive, actually.
Pretty detailed.
Guys, don't forget, if you want more of the good stuff, you can go and get a free trial of my e-learning platform. You could even, if you really wanted to, go ahead and buy it, where it gives you everything that you need to get CeMAP qualified. So there are video files, audio files, PDF downloads, an ebook that you can't get anywhere else. I had all of my free training sessions in there. I'm currently doing a complete rebrand of both of them, which is the bane of my existence, but I'm doing it because every time I have a student that sits their exam, they feed back to me what came up in their exam. That helps me build more material, which helps it make you get through your exams easier. That was a lot. There's also masterclass spaces. I will link availability in the show notes for those. Current next spaces, I think, are either September, because I don't think there's one in August, either July or September.
Yeah.
Although the July one is now almost full as of this morning, which is March. So by the time this comes out, September,
realistically.
You can buy a voucher if you want to cash in on any dates. You can be added to wait lists. The wait lists are full till June, but outside of that, people can be added onto them. And don't forget that you can leave a review, give us 5 stars, message me to tell me how much you listened to this podcast and loved it. All of that stuff makes us feel
Please let us know if
nice
you did enjoy it.
Yeah. And that's it. That's everything from us.
Fuzzies.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cue outro music.